Beardman too has spoken. His words are elixir from the gods. We'll now listen and discuss this topic. Subscribe to JB on YouTube and like Are You Aaron to Top D.
What's going on, everybody? I don't usually do videos like this, but in light of the developer update that we got from Showdown today, I figured I had to. There's really no option now, so I'm gonna go through the whole video with you guys, break down, give my 2 cents, and we'll go from there. We'll ratchet style.
Hello, I'm Dennis Schwartz, Design Director for Hunt Showdown. Today we are going to talk about our design goals for some of the subtle and substantial game mechanics changing with our August launch. We will be touching on trait changes, reducing stalemates, as well as changes to our gunplay formula. Let us start easy. We are bringing back Witness as a regular trait for everyone to equip in a menu for 5 upgrade points. Witness allows you to see nearby dead hunters and recently deceased monsters in Darkside.
Let us start easy is right. A very good change. New and returning elements back in the game, which is dying for something fresh, even if it's been in the game already. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, you know? Another thing to consider is the importance of changing a burn trait to a regular trait if it never needed to be a burn trait to begin with, either because of demand or experimentation. This isn't a huge burn. Witness will make the game slightly less ambiguous from an intermediate level's perspective and provide some clarity, and I'm happy to see its return. On the other hand, I don't even think I noticed it being gone, and I really think Hunt's devs bringing it back into the game is more motivated by the sheer amount of destruction they've caused to solo players and the changes discussed in the video ahead. Press on.
We are reorganizing the existing trait categories for a more interesting mix of traits and how players can acquire them. No longer are there only regular and burn traits. Instead, some traits will get the burn or scarce attributes, or both. Scarce traits can only be found in the vault and cannot be equipped from the menu with upgrade points. Shadow and the returning Shadow Leap are both examples of scarce traits that are not burn traits and remain on your hunter until you're defeated or fail to extract safely. Shadow Leap has been adjusted to no longer work for leaping into meatheads as a balancing node. Most of our existing burn traits are now both burn and scarce traits, keeping them consistent with how they worked so far. Rare to find and short-lived, being consumed after they fulfilled their special purpose. However, we have adjusted some of their stack sizes. For example, you can now only keep a single instance of Death Cheat on your hunter at a time, while Remedy, Relentless, and Rampage can still be held up to 3 times each.
Now the TLDR here is that scarce traits are traits found exclusively in the world, which is important for the new changes because new burn traits can be bought with upgrade points at the main menu. Death Cheat being a single-time use rather than 3 is yet another instance of an unnecessary change to the game. Again, possibly by reason of throwing the solo population off dev's tracks. And I only say that because not once in the many hours of Hunt I've played since the end of Desolation's Wake have I found even a single Death Cheat spur. Maybe if they increased the percentage of them spawning in the game, that would give reason, but otherwise I'm still pretty confused here.
This leads us to our first newly modified trait, Necromancer. Necromancer is now a single-use burn trait with a stack size of 1, which costs 4 upgrade points.
Huh?
It also no longer drains your health when attempting to revive a downed teammate. What does this mean for solo hunters? Solo hunters using Necromancer receive a single restoration of all their health chunks as they get back up, but they can only attempt to get up a single time as Necromancer is now burned on use. The cooldown for self-revive has been reduced slightly as a balancing.
Now before I kick this off, I want to preface this by saying I'm by no means trying to sound too critical of the devs. I know they're trying new things in their game to see how the community will respond, and there's only one way for me to see if this is really as bad as it sounds. However, it's just strange how they've made this amount of change to the one thing solos had in the game. And the fact that I can already smell the team players who will have a sort of nearsightedness about this change and already having such heavy opposition to the way Necro currently is, I'll repeat what I said. Necro for solos is a fundamental necessity. It is not a get good scenario when the team 3 stacking has every advantage at their disposal in a fight and manages to kill the solo. The same can be easily said about the opposite situation, where a solo manages to pull off a 3v1. Truly, to my Necro abolishing party counterparts, take a look at the advantages solos have versus the advantages a single team does. I think that the team-based change of it so far makes sense and is highly situational. I ran into a similar thought while watching Hunt Lab's videos on making Necromancer better for everyone. There were a lot of points that seemed to cover the team-based end of it, but practically no one considered the party of solos. And to think I looked at most of them and kind of chuckled knowing that the devs wouldn't dare do something so brash, it baffles me these are the results we got. The fact that I ran trios all the time in Desolation's Wake, and every time I necroed someone I had great cover and regen shots to cover the bar I'd lost. Even if you don't have a regen shot, playing with a 50 chunk literally restores your lost health anyways. So this, again, it's just strange. It's just, I don't know what they're doing. Overall, I think this is a catastrophe for solo gameplay and the devs better have a good backup plan. I'm sure there can be some sort of compromise we can all come to, but this is not it.
Over the last year, we have introduced more ways for players to get back into the fight after being downed. These changes have had a positive impact overall, but have also introduced many points of frustration and contributed to stalemate situations. Having reflected on your feedback and the available data, we are making adjustments to burning and revive mechanics to reduce stalemates and bring more decisive closure to player versus player fights. The previously mentioned adjustments to Necromancer sit at the heart of this change in direction and are complemented by a much faster burn rate to fully burn out a downed hunter. We appreciate and want to emphasize the play and counterplay of burning and choke effects. We now have choke bombs, beetles and bolts available for players for tactical use, but we are limiting the duration of choke clouds to half the previous duration. This is a deliberate change to reduce the 2 minutes of just waiting out the choke cloud before making the next counter move in the fight. We are aware of the controversy surrounding everything to do with reviving, restoring, burning, choking and generally stalling out the player versus player fights. Our core philosophy here is to provide mechanics for capitalizing on the advantage of taking down 1 or 2 members of an opposing team, but still have room for clutch counterplay and tactics to get your own team back in the fight without dragging out into overly long waiting games.
Find that the faster burn rate can go either way, as its intentions is, and I quote, to reduce the stalemates and bring more closure to PvP fights. Again, however, from a solo's perspective, if they've gotten close enough to my body that they can begin burning, flares and flare guns need to go, or at least be significantly reduced. And this is not a hot take, as I can already envision one person hovering over my body while the 2 others search for a lantern. See how this isn't a great solution? And I guarantee you this will be the outcome, and it doesn't sound fun for anyone, does it? Up the player count in a lobby, so that there's a greater chance for a third-party intervention, which gives me enough time to get up and reposition. If playing solo sounds ratty, I promise you it's because we're dealing with an unwinnable circumstance from the start. Thank you for making it worse, Hunt.
As always, we ask you to keep an open mind to the changes and look forward to seeing how loadouts, tactics and fight times play out in a live environment, as well as survey opinions collected as we go forward. Moving on to gunplay topics, we are happy to announce that the centered crosshair will be available as the default setting for new players. A lowered crosshair option remains available for players who prefer or are more accustomed to that position. The lack of a centered crosshair has long been cited as a barrier to entry for players transitioning from other first-person shooters into Hunt. And with the August launch, it will now be available for them to consider trying Hunt again, as well as to more effectively onboard players joining us for the first time.
The centered crosshairs I have little to say about. I'm obviously glad they decided to implement this in the game because it's impossible to play any other game due to the lack of centered crosshairs. And the fact that they kept the lowered stage for its older players actually gives me hope that they'll have the same consideration when the solo necro changes absolutely flop.
We are applying a subtle drop to projectiles at longer distances based on ammo types and weapon characteristics such as action type and barrel lengths. At extreme ranges, players will now require a bit more skill, judgment and timing to land those perfect shots. While it becomes harder to hit the targeted range, we are also ensuring that any headshot will always be lethal at every range, making those kills even more rewarding.
I truly believe that should only be the case for snipers, but as far as we can tell, this is a full spectrum situation here. Be ready to relearn everything about every gun. I really don't know how to feel about this change because it just seems unnecessary with all the other changes that could be made. Like, I'm convinced they keep at the game exactly as it is, with maybe a small update so often, you know, until they fix the bigger issues at hand, like the prominence of trades, the teams versus solo debate, etc. And I'm sure it'll be fun. The headshot range being infinite is also cool and it speeds up fights, but my question overall in this update, and what are they really trying to do here? It seems like they're trying to add elements in the game that drastically speed up the engagements and finalize fights as they said in verbatim, right? But I feel like we'll miss out on the strategies we had when the game was a bit slower paced. It almost seems like they only listen to the team players having a stick up their ass about camping solos, which doesn't constitute a whole % of the game, but apparently constitutes a whole game rework because it happens. It's literally a part of the game. So if now me, a fairly casual solo player, which I'm assuming that's the audience here, it's punished for it, and now it's our turn to roll the dice on whether our strength and numbers will be great enough to get it turned into an objectively good playstyle. And I know it sounds like I'm really ripping into the team players, but all I've ever seen are Redditors typing a thesaurus worth of information regarding all of their hardships with solos. And the only thing I can say with certainty is that there's a whole other community in this game whose needs have not been met, especially with its change. If you haven't seen the video from Hunt Labs I was talking about earlier, I'll leave a link in the description. Go look at the changes he suggested and look at the comments in opposition to them. They're some of the most intuitive and in-depth looks at the perspective of solo players that I myself can't even come up with that the devs are not paying enough attention to.
This notable change greatly mixes up weapon balance and the established meta, and we cannot be more excited for you to try all this out yourselves in August. While we expect speculation or opinions to run rampant with this news, can be assured Sentiment, data, and surveys will as always be the key.
With that said,
measures
I know this is a lot of opinion, and I don't expect it to be met with a lot of understanding,
We will be back soon.
as I can see the team players having the best day of their lives after hearing this news, but seriously, this is an issue. I don't see their vision, and I hope they prove me wrong, but if it's simply this, man, the game will lose a crucial part of its player base. Does this mean it'll flatline or even come close? Probably not, and that's not my hope at all. But David Fifield and Dennis Schwartz need to make a decision that makes it easier for solos and teams to coincide. If you feel that I'm wrong, please give me a rebuttal in the comment section. I promise I'm a reasonable person. Let me know if you think this change is one that'll benefit Hunt in the long run or ruin it indefinitely. And be sure to like and sub for some more hot takes as we come into the moment of truth in August. And thank you for those who watched this far if you got here. Peace.